Christians being persecuted around the world. The U.S. military is busier than you think, and we take an in-depth look at why many migrants from Central America might be worse off if they come to the United States. It's Friday, December 14th, and this is The Hot Zone.
This is The Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Well, happy Friday, folks. For all you've been kind enough to try out this brand new endeavor of mine, I just want to say thanks. Please give me your feedback if you'd like the podcast to be longer or shorter or cover different topics or whatever. I want to hear from you. You can get in touch with me through the Hot Zone Podcast Facebook page, my personal page, or send me an email at hotzoneholton@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying this podcast and you'd like to get involved, consider becoming a subscriber at patreon.com/hotzone. I'll enable us to tell better stories and help more people with your contributions. Also, there's an option there to become a virtual foster parent. We're going to talk later today about how it's so much better and so much cheaper to help somebody where they are rather than bring them to the United States. And with our virtual foster parent program, you can change the life of a young person and little by little help pull their country out of poverty. Now, let's talk about religious persecution. Unfortunately, we're seeing it spread all around the world. And in the last week, I've come up with a top 5 list of the places you don't want to live if you're a Christian. Number 5, Burma. The Burmese military junta has been killing up to 10,000 Christians a year for decades. The Hill Tribes people who live in Burma, also called Myanmar, were converted to Christianity about 100 years ago by Adoniram Judson, actually over 100 years ago. The first white missionary to preach in Burma back in the mid-19th century was Adoniram Judson. But the government of Burma is now Buddhist, and they make no bones about the fact that they plan to drive every Christian out of their country. Number 4, Iran. Last week, the Iranians began a crackdown on Iranian Christians and rounded up more than 100 of them. Converting to Christianity is a crime there, and proselytizing can get you 10 years in prison. This is common in many countries across the Middle East, and surprisingly, there's a growing trend of people converting anyway. Number 3, China. About 100 worshipers were snatched from their homes in coordinated raids last week. They were members of an unauthorized home church. While the Christian church is not officially banned in China, freedom of worship is non-existent. And with the Chinese government's new push to use technology to monitor every detail of their citizens' lives and then assign them a social score based on their behavior, even those Christians who aren't arrested could find themselves unable to travel or get loans or jobs or maybe even go shopping. Extrapolate this out a bit and you can kind of see how Christian end times prophecy could definitely come true. Number 2 is Nigeria. Human rights groups are reporting that upwards of 60,000 Christians have been killed in that country since 2001. Near daily violent attacks by the ISIS-affiliated Boko Haram organization, as well as hostile Fulani tribesmen, have killed thousands and have driven up to 2.5 million Nigerians from their homes. Boko Haram burns churches, they close schools, and they kidnap women and children and then force them into forced marriages. That country's a serious mess and is about as close to a failed state as a country can get without being Somalia. Number 1 worst place to be a Christian this week, Afghanistan. There's only one actual Christian building in the entire country, which is the Christian chapel at the Italian embassy. No Afghans are allowed inside. Afghan citizens are legally prohibited from converting to Christianity, and the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan does not recognize any Afghan citizen as being Christian, though I happen to be friends with a Christian missionary there who believes there are maybe perhaps 1,000 Afghans who follow Christ and live secretly around the country. Being exposed as a believer in Afghanistan is a quicker way to die than walking through Earp, Texas, carrying a sign that says, "I'm here to take your guns." Now, when I say these are places that a Christian wouldn't want to live, I'm being a little bit facetious because Christians aren't called to be safe and comfortable. And in many ways, living in a place where you're free to practice your faith also means you're free to do anything but practice it. If you're a Christian in Burma or Nigeria or Iran, you have to commit. And I could tell you some amazing stories of believers that I've met in some of those countries whose faith is so strong, I actually envy them for what they live through. Now let's move on to what the U.S. military is up to in Africa. That's a question many U.S. politicians were asking about a year ago in October when 3 American Green Berets were killed and 2 more wounded in an ambush in Niger. The men were part of a small team of operators who were there training that country's forces and had been out on a routine patrol. Their deaths shocked America and led to lots and lots of questions about what exactly we are doing there. Well, folks, the war on terror hasn't ended. And I know you don't hear a lot about it on the news, but that's partly because the American people are so tired of war, and partly because the U.S. military became a lot less transparent under the Obama administration. For example, were you aware that in addition to the tragedy that happened in Niger last year, the U.S. military has also suffered casualties in Somalia, Kenya, Nigeria, Chad, and Cameroon? And that there are as many U.S. troops stationed in Africa today as there are on the ground in Iraq? More than 6,000 of them spread across the continent of Africa, and almost all of them are actively engaged in the global war on terror. Many are with the U.S. Special Forces, but there's also lots of intelligence assets over there, medical units, and more. The U.S. military has troops stationed now in more than 170 countries around the globe, and many of those men and women are going to be away from their loved ones this holiday season. The same goes for thousands of our troops that are here at home. My own beloved son, Mason, won't be able to join us for Christmas this year, and it'll be the first time we've ever been apart from any of our kids for that holiday. It's just part of the price that we pay for our freedom. One way the troops connect with those back home is to post shout-outs to their loved ones. And so I want to play one from a young Marine who hails from our neck of the woods, Cross Lanes, West Virginia.
I'm Lance Corporal Mullins. I'm from Cross Lanes, West Virginia. I would love to wish my family, including my wife and kid, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to everyone else out there.
Now, let's move on to immigration. On Wednesday, a group of over 100 migrants from the caravan went to the U.S. Embassy in Tijuana demanding $50,000 each from the U.S. government to get them back home. Sure, guys, line right up and get your money. Sign me up for that one. I'd say probably most Americans would gladly head to Tijuana to get in that line, but so also would about 1 billion people from other countries around the globe. So I want to address this sentiment that we keep hearing so much of regarding the migrants from the caravan at our southern border and others too. It's the idea that they're fleeing poverty, and the implicit message that's being given both to the American people and to the migrants themselves is that if they could just get some more stuff, more money, better food, free education for their kids, that those benefits of more would justify them leaving everything and everyone they've ever known, trekking thousands of miles across dangerous countries, and then breaking into a place that they don't have any right to be. Well, I want to address this idea by just showing you a guy that I know who could be the poster boy for what Americans consider the poor Central American. So I wanted to bring you out here to show you something that I've been talking about for a while, and that is just exactly why we don't necessarily need to bring people to the United States to make their lives better. I want to introduce you to my friend, Sebastian. So this is how my friend Sebastian gets to work every day. His house is just behind me up the hill there, and his farm is down here in this lowland. And you can see his grandson, Jorge, here is taking his daily bath. That's how they get clean. This is the place where they bathe, and it's a beautiful, clean mountain stream. Might be a little chilly, but we are in the tropics. Trabajando.
¿Cómo le va?
Muy bien, muy bien. Dios les bendiga. So this is my friend Sebastian. ¿Cuántos años tienes tú?
Yo soy 68.
68 years old.
Me falta un mes y unos días para cumplir los 68.
So he's going to be 68 in 1 month, he says. We're just getting into springtime here. And so Sebastian's been cleaning up the farm down here where it's gotten overgrown during the rainy season.
El bajo que se va así para allá.
Uh-huh.
Sí, para allá.
¿Y vas a limpiarlo todo?
Sí, para allá.
Hasta allá.
Sí.
So he's been farming this plot of land for his entire life.
Se han tapado.
And that's what he does. That's his living here. He doesn't make a lot of money. He doesn't need a lot of money. And this is kind of what I was getting at, is that when we're talking about poverty, most people would look at Sebastian and they would say that he's a very poor man because he doesn't have any money. But at the same time, I tell him he's the wealthiest man in our town because he doesn't need money. These are mandarin oranges. Do you know how expensive these things are in the States? And Sebastian has dozens of mandarin orange trees on this property, not to mention banana and grapefruit and avocado and beans and yucca and plantain and all sorts of other food items that he grows himself. And so, I mean, think about that. Think about the concept of poverty when you live in a place where you have everything you need that grows all year round. You can care for yourself off of your own piece of land. You don't need much. Sebastian has not had electricity his entire life until about a year ago. This just goes to show, I think, that what we consider to be poverty very often is just a different way of life and can actually be wealth. See, I think a lot of the people who are coming north out of these Golden Triangle countries in Latin America are being lied to. They're being told that they have a better way of life waiting for them across the border in the United States, when in reality, they live in a pretty nice place as it is. And yeah, they might not have a lot of money, but they don't need a lot of money. They need less money than you do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I've spent a pretty good portion of the last 15 years outside of the United States, and I've learned something by looking at U.S. culture from the outside in. America's a fantastic country, but what makes America great isn't the outlet malls or Walmarts or Targets or Amazon.com. Those things make America convenient, maybe, but they don't make America great. What makes America truly great is the goodness of her people. Americans are the most generous nation of people on the entire planet. And sometimes in that generosity, if we're not careful, we can do more harm than good. And that's one reason I started this podcast. I wanted to help you get a better handle on the issues surrounding charity and help you have a more direct impact on people in need. I want to take you to them and let you see what your charity is doing in their lives. And people like Sebastian don't necessarily need more money, but there are many that I meet every year who are having the worst day ever because of whatever tragedy I happen to be there covering. And those are people that we can definitely help. Now, as for Sebastian, I'm going to go give him some special treats to make his family's Christmas dinner special this year, just because I love the guy. But if you'd like to join me, send whatever you want to the PayPal address hotzoneholton@gmail.com, or visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/hotzone. And don't just watch the news, change it. So that's all for today. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday on The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.